Hi, I'm James. Welcome to Slaying Sober, where we tell stories of addiction, recovery, and hope. Wherever you are on your sober journey, know that you do not stand alone. Today on Slaying Sober, we're joined by Nicole. She's a powerful voice for anyone suffering at the hands of a loved one's addiction. Codependency in addiction is the painful dynamic when your life starts revolving around the addict, as you sacrifice your own well-being and try and hold everything together. When someone you love is in addiction, the questions can be relentless. How can I fix my partner's addiction? Why didn't I see the signs? Why are they choosing drugs, alcohol, and gambling over me and our family? 12 years ago, Nicole was living those exact questions when her husband's hidden gambling addiction erupted in a suicide attempt where he left notes for her and their young children. Amid financial collapse and the murder of her best friend days later, she survived on autopilot, hiding her tears to protect her kids and asking herself, how do I pick up the pieces? Her turning point came when she realised your loved one's addiction is not about you. Stop making it personal. That truth sparked her own healing journey, calming her nervous system, setting boundaries, and shifting from trying to save him to taking care of herself. Now, Nicole helps others spot the signs, begin their own recovery, and move from victimhood to partnership. She shows how, when we meet our partners where they are and look after ourselves at the same time, we can start walking the journey of recovery together. Welcome to Nicole's story. Before we get stuck in, I'd ask you to consider forwarding this episode onto someone you love. Whether you're a suffering addict or someone who's been touched by addiction, this conversation with Nicole was a huge help for me in navigating the way my addiction has affected others around me and how they can seek help as well in recovering together. It's a really beautiful conversation. I got a lot out of it. I hope you do too. Please forward it on to someone you love today. A quick note and trigger warning that this conversation discusses topics of suicide. Tread carefully. Hi, Nicole. Thank you very much for joining us on Slaying Sober.
Thanks for having me, James.
No problems. I'm really looking forward to this conversation, largely because you come from the other side of the fence where your partner suffered from addiction and in turn, so did you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always say that he had his recovery journey and I had mine. We both needed, and not necessarily from addiction, but from life. You know, it was a really, I guess, that experience once I started to heal was like, okay, the addiction came along to help me heal everything, not just what had gone on in
Yeah.
that time.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
we'll look forward to hearing more about that. Tell me about what you do now and mindful healing and your business operation.
yeah, so when I went through supporting him through addiction, which started around 12 years ago, lasted around, oh, look, probably the heaviest part of it was around 3 to 4 years, a couple of
Yep.
relapses after that.
Mm-hmm.
It was really hard to get really aligned support for me as a loved one. And
Yes.
even for our children who were 16, 14, and 9, now they're all young adults. But trying to get support where we actually were supported the way that we needed and deserved was
Yes.
really hard to find. I did actually have support through, I think it was called Gamblers Help. So
Yep.
part of the criteria for getting support for my husband with them was I had to do 3 sessions as well. with a counsellor,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't realise it at the time, but it was extremely traumatic when I look back at it now with what I do. So now I do somatic therapy
Yes.
because I believe that the body keeps everything. And
Mm.
when we talk about stuff, sometimes we can re traumatize ourselves and we don't have a way to regulate again. So, the space I hold now for mindful healing is holding space for people who have a loved one in addiction and doing deep healing work because
Mm.
we think about, like obviously for you on the other side, but for us, there's a lot of codependency traits that step forward, which I don't like labels, but I think it's like we have to admit that we are in that I need to save my loved one, then I'll be okay.
Yes.
Codependency. Yeah.
Mm.
So understanding, well, firstly, what is going on for me that has made me feel that someone else's well-being is more important than my own. That
Yes.
was a big, I remember hearing that when I did my somatic therapy training, why am I willing to put myself last? And it really hit home for me. I had done it for so long and it
Yes.
had started before addiction was the truth.
Mm.
And 99% of my clients come in thinking everything that I do is going to be about my loved one's addiction. And that is like the current situation, but it all starts earlier.
Yeah.
So I
Well.
do like a 6 week program, and we cover all the things, like boundaries and effective communication and all of that. But we do the deep healing support as well. So you've got those tools to lean on for the rest of your life.
Well, you've got
Um,
the right audience in front of you, both addicts
that's-
and us trying to make amends to the people that we've hurt so much through our
yeah.
addiction as well. So I love the work that you're doing, and I've loved watching you online. I can totally relate to so much of it.
Oh, good. I do get a lot of that. Like I feel like you're speaking what I don't know how to say.
Mm,
I can still get a bit emotional, but it's different. It's not, this is me, the broken version. This is me now, the empowered version.
yeah.
And sharing with a purpose because I know what it's like to be going through it by yourself.
Yeah, and you've now got tools that you've got in your toolkit to assist regulate yourself rather than going deep down into that hole.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes a huge difference. And so I say to people, if you do nothing else when you do your sessions with me, I give them like a regulation tool to do daily. Find 5 minutes a day to do this. It will change your life. And it does.
Yeah.
Like it just takes, same thing, it takes time. It's not overnight. You've got to commit to it.
Mm,
And a lot of the times we've forgotten how to commit to ourselves. So starting with 5 minutes a day is something that's achievable,
yeah.
because we haven't given to us probably for years.
Amazing. We'll go deeper into that. What I wanted to ask you is tell me about your husband and how you met him.
We were actually childhood sweethearts, which,
Yay.
so yeah, I was 16, he was 19 when we met.
Yes.
And then 3 years after meeting, we moved to Melbourne together, got married, got our three beautiful children. Um, And I guess it's one of those things, like we're now in our early 50s, we've been married for over 30 years. We
30
literally
years.
had, yeah, a
Amazing.
lifetime. He always says you get less for murder. And I'm like, well, you're just lucky that you got
Yeah.
me. Um, yeah, so, and I think when I think back, there's always been signs of him carrying trauma. There's
Yes.
always, but it's almost like one of those things where, I would check in. No, I'm good, I'm good. And like, even when he really went into his deep hole,
Mm,
so many people were like, what are you talking about? He's everybody's mate. He's the life of the party. He's
yeah.
a funny guy. He's a brilliant father, still a
Mm,
brilliant father.
yeah.
The kids adore him. He's same thing as what you were saying. He's had to make amends and he continues to try to show up the best he can. Doesn't always get it right, but who
Yes.
does?
Yep.
But
Progress,
for me,
not perfection.
yeah, for
Mm,
me, it's all about the actual effort. We don't
yep.
have to be perfect. It's about showing that you care enough to try.
Yeah, that's
Um,
beautiful. It's
and
really
yeah,
beautiful to hear you talk about your husband like that. As we know, addiction can be both loud but also silent. Tell me about how his addiction started to present itself in your life.
I think really for him, it was very silent.
Yeah.
And I will give a little trigger warning here that the day I found out the depths of his addiction was the same day he tried to take his life.
Yes.
So I had noticed probably for about a week, a few things going on, him being really quiet. My eldest daughter, who was 16 at the time, had said, "Oh, Dad said a couple of really strange things to me. He used to drop them off at school sometimes. Don't know what to make of that." And, I'd have a chat and he'd, "No, no, she's, making something out of nothing, whatever."
Yeah.
And then it was a Tuesday morning and I got a text from him going, "I've left something in the car. Can you go and get it?" And I automatically felt sick. That
Mm.
feeling you get when it's like, I don't know what's going on, but I feel sick to the pit of my stomach.
Yes.
And I remember running out to my car and there's a plastic bag and it had, I think there was 4 envelopes in it.
Oh.
One for me and one for each of the kids. It was suicide notes. Yeah, and I don't remember. I remember running back to my room, but I must have been screaming because all of a sudden my kids are in the room.
Yeah.
They're there and they took their letters. My middle daughter absolutely idolized her dad. She
Mm.
has had him on this pedestal. She's ringing him, trying to get him to answer. Um, and ultimately, we did end up getting in contact with him, but this was like 7 in the morning. I've got the letters. And
Yes.
in the meantime, that day, like we got the police involved. I got support, a couple of people come around to support me and the kids.
Yes.
Um, and then ambulance came and then because he said, "Look, I'm coming home." I think he
Mm.
got home late afternoon.
Yep.
Walked in, police here, ambulance here, kids had long enough to give him a hug and then he's taken away. um
Wow. Yeah. So
yeah,
you were able to make contact with him and he was found somewhere or he came back on his own device?
he drove himself home, which they had his car, like I think they put like a high alert on it, so if they
Yeah.
saw him they were, he could be a risk to society in that state, so
Yeah.
to keep an eye on him, but he did bring himself home.
Hmm.
And then he went, took him by ambulance, went to the local hospital waiting for a psych ward. And I remember going in that night,
Yep.
and him saying to me, "I couldn't even do that. Couldn't even kill myself." Never
Mm.
forget the look, like even the, I guess the total resignation to, "I'm broken. I
Yes.
don't deserve to be here." Like I
Mm.
think that's probably one of the things that haunts me the most about that experience with him. And how
Yes.
when I hear people say, "Oh, suicide's the easy way out or coward's way out," I
Mm.
think if you've ever sat with someone in that state of despair, you would not think that.
Yeah,
You wouldn't think that
absolutely.
at all.
It's that complete hopelessness, isn't it?
Yeah, and he, even in my letter, one of the things that he said was, "I feel like there's a devil on my shoulder and I can't get rid of him. And while he's there, I can't stop," which was the gambling addiction.
Yes.
And, like I didn't know the depths of it until the next day. And I'm at the bank going, "Oh, you've got $2 in your account and,
Yeah.
your mortgage has been stretched further than what you knew." So
Yes.
it's all just so secretive, like I'd go, "Oh, remember that time I went to pay for petrol and my card declined?" And, I rang him going, "There's something going on and I can't
Mm.
get into the bank accounts." He kept changing the passwords, like all these things.
Yes.
Um, and had
Lying,
it so,
deception, manipulation, all of our addict traits that we have that now
yeah,
retrospectively you can probably see and from afar.
yeah, yeah. Looking back, clear as day when you're in it and, you're working and you're trying to run a house, you've got 3 kids that you're managing as well. It's like, "Are you okay?" "Yeah, cool."
Yep, on
One
you
thing
go.
less to have to worry about. Yeah,
Yeah.
literally.
I bet you're
Yeah,
a lot more attuned to signs of emotional change and regulation now.
absolutely. And I also have that ability where I'll be, okay, I'm feeling myself being activated because maybe he is being a bit quiet, which was something that definitely was leading up.
Yes.
Okay, he's a bit quiet. Let me just calm myself down first
Yep.
and then communicate about it so he feels like I'm talking with him instead of at him. And that
Yeah.
makes a big difference. And, him too now, he's still not the greatest communicator,
Hmm.
but I've been really honest with him. When you are really quiet, sometimes I do go into that fear response. that
Mm,
response is my responsibility, but it's
yes.
really helpful if you can communicate with me about what's actually going on so I can support you.
Yeah.
So,
It
yeah,
sounds
that
like you're
meeting
a
in the
wonderful
middle.
communicator. So he
Yeah,
obviously went through, um, a mental health episode brought on by his addiction, and I'm assuming the guilt and the shame and the lying that went along with that. Um,
yeah,
and,
yeah.
and he was able to get help and get well.
Yeah, so he spent, I think it was about 2 weeks in a psych ward,
Yep.
and that was horrific, for
Mm,
the kids too.
yeah.
Just even the ages they were, and they refused to go after a couple of times because it was just too scary.
Yeah. I can imagine.
And I'm like, we don't need more trauma. You've gone through enough stuff.
Yep.
And then he was moved to, I don't know if you've heard of them, but it's called a Parks Centre, and
I have.
it's
Yep.
yeah, they're amazing places. We were really
Mm,
lucky at the time that he got in there and he spent, I think it was about 6 weeks in the park centre getting support. And that was like, we could go and visit him there and, take him for a walk or out for a coffee. And then he could start to come home for a meal.
yep.
And then a night, it's just slowly integrating back into
Yeah.
living life again.
For our
Um,
listeners, tell us about what the parks is and how it's helped.
So it's like I guess it's just like a house it's got carers in there that support people.
Mm,
And he had his own room. To me, it nearly felt like a mini motel. So he had his own
yeah.
room and ensuite, and then they had a communal area where they could all contribute to cooking meals, healthy eating, doing different activities like meditation, yoga,
Mm,
even, maybe playing table tennis. And then they did outings as well. Remember one day him ringing me and he was at some convent where they were helping serve meals or something.
yeah.
Like, yeah, lots of different things to really help him, I guess, just to start to come back into his body, I think was a lot of it.
Yes.
But to go, okay, I've been through some really big stuff, but there's still hope and I can start to feel
Yeah.
some sort of okay again. Um,
But it's
we also had an
gentle letting be back into society after an acute mental episode, essentially.
yeah, exactly. And I think for me, and I'm going to be really honest here, and I know that people that love someone in addiction will relate to this because I hear it all the time. I did feel quite resentful of it.
Yeah.
And that
Okay.
was something that took me a while to actually go, oh, I feel resentful that he's there.
Yep.
That's, I wanted this. I wanted him to get support. I didn't have to worry about him. He was being cared
Mm,
for. But in the same token, well, I'm the one going to the bank trying to put the pieces back together. I'm the one
yes.
dealing with credits, creditors ringing, whatever. I'm the
Yep.
one trying to help my 3 children and
Mm,
myself. I was really lucky my work gave me time off. But, like I'm still here
yeah.
trying to navigate everything and you're off there. Some days I go, geez, it must be nice to do yoga. I've just
Mm,
been, to an appointment with one of the kids trying to get them counselling or,
yes.
trying to work out how I'm going to buy food for us to eat.
Yeah.
There was a level of resentment, and I think it's really important to normalize that. It's
Mm,
okay that if you
yeah.
feel that as well, because I get it a lot from people that go, my husband's going, finally going to rehab, but it's costing us this much money.
Hmm.
How am I going to manage working and the kids? There is that comes in, and I think it's understandable.
Yeah. And what about the loneliness that you had being, you know, in your marital bed by yourself, feeling like you have to pick up the pieces?
Yeah. We actually had probably one of the worst events I've ever been through. So 2 days after my husband tried to take his life, my best friend was murdered,
Oh,
and
my
I was
God.
the last person to speak to her.
Oh,
So I had that at the same time. So for me, I actually felt like I wasn't even in my body anymore. I felt like I had left and I was literally on autopilot,
I
trying
bet.
just to survive. Yeah. So I'd get into bed at night and my son, who was 9 at the time, he actually was sleeping in with me.
Yep.
And I was trying so hard to not let him know, which was
Yeah.
beyond belief, that I'm sad because he thought sad meant I might try to take my life. Because,
Mm.
that's how do you explain to a 9-year-old that dad tried to take his life? It was
Yes.
literally, okay,
Mm.
dad's really sad, like really sad.
Yep.
I didn't know how else to explain it. So then he'd see me being sad and get scared. So I had to be really careful to keep that mask on. And literally the second he fell asleep, it was like, okay, now I can let the walls down a bit. Or in the shower, like in the
Yeah.
shower every morning, would be
It's easier
crying.
to hide
Trying
tears in
to-
the shower. Oh.
Absolutely. And you're usually by yourself.
Ha ha ha! You hope
So,
so.
yeah,
Yeah.
especially when your
But
husband's not around. Yeah,
so there's trauma stacking on top of itself, um,
yeah.
and life must have been unmanageable for you almost at that point.
Yeah, it's a really strange thing to explain, but I remember when homicide came, first I wouldn't let them in because I thought they were here to tell me that he'd taken his life. And then when I
Yeah.
did let them in and they're asking me if I knew my friend, and I'm going, yeah, like what's happened? And then they've told me.
Oh,
And I felt like my soul left my body, like
yeah.
complete dissociation, almost like I was watching myself from above.
Yeah.
Um, and I still laugh about it. I remember saying to one of them, is this real or are we on an episode of like Water Rats or something like a
Yeah.
police show?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And they're
It
just
must have
looking
been
at me
so
going,
surreal.
are you okay? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I
Yes.
don't know if I'm okay. I couldn't grieve for her. It took me probably about 5 years to actually really start to grieve for her
Really.
because I didn't have capacity for it. It literally
Yes.
was, no, this is way too much. Now I need to focus on what I have to do right now, which
Yeah.
firstly was get my kids support,
Mm.
get us food on the table. He's
Yeah.
taken care of. Focus on him when he comes home. And
Yes.
I didn't even get help for me for at least, I think it was about 4 months. I didn't even see anyone for me because that just wasn't space for me to think about me.
Yeah. I guess you go into survival mode in that case, don't you? It's like it's almost primal.
Yeah, it is. It's like being a robot, Millie. What do I have
Yeah.
to do now? Do it. What do I have to, like, no emotion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I remember,
Shelter,
like,
food, kids, the rest will just fall into line.
yeah, it's just a really strange place to be in. And I think it took me about 6 months to actually feel like, I guess, my soul was coming back to my body, that I could start
Yeah.
to go, okay, it's safe now for me to start to feel again.
Mm, yes.
And even, like I never cried. People go, how are you not crying? And I go, I don't know, I just can't. Every now
Yeah.
and then I'd have like a tear come out, like, I imagine myself like a bucket full, and
Yeah.
every now and then a bit would come out, but I just
Push it back
couldn't do
in.
it.
Push it back in.
Yeah, and it would be. I'd start crying, then I'd go, nope, not doing that.
Oh.
Don't have time for that.
Yes. Yes. Your husband's addiction. It obviously. I asked you initially whether it presented itself in a silent or a loud way. It obviously presented to you in a very loud way.
Yeah.
But the silent little happenings in the background, retrospectively, how did they look for you?
I guess for me, it looked like disconnection for a start.
Yes.
Almost like I'm sitting at one end of the couch, she's at the other, but we might as well have been on the other side of the country from each other.
Yeah.
And I do remember, feeling really frustrated, like I couldn't reach him, but just thinking, oh,
Mm.
he's stressed at work, or,
Yeah.
like, and I remember my mum's saying that she was worried that he was having an affair because he was always on his phone, which was the gambling.
Yes.
Um, yeah, so there was the distance. He was very good at pretending he was okay, like,
Yeah.
turning it on.
Yeah.
And I still see it now sometimes where I go, you don't have to perform for people. They don't like
Yeah.
you. Who cares? You got
Yeah.
to like yourself first.
Yeah.
But they're very good at doing that, putting that
Mm.
mask on. And
Yeah.
I think, like when we think about, say, a drug addiction or alcohol, usually we find signs of it.
Yes.
And when you're looking for gambling, especially when it's done online,
Mm.
where do you find the signs?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's done right. He's sitting next to me on the couch doing it, and I didn't know, on his phone
Yes.
gambling.
Was he
Yeah.
emotive around his gambling? Like highs of winning and lows of losing?
No, no.
No.
And
It
I
was
remember saying to him, yeah, I
habitual.
don't understand it. Yeah, because I
Mm,
go, well, how do you keep going when you're losing all the money, you're under that much stress that, you're living a double life really,
mm,
um, and trying to cover your tracks all the time. And he was like, it's almost like I was on autopilot.
yeah.
Like I just knew that I had to do it. And, a lot of his went back to childhood trauma when he started his healing and uncovering that. But to me, that's what addiction is, almost like I'm uncomfortable within myself and
Yes.
I've found this way to cope. And,
Mm.
like for me, that was food. I recognized that within myself. For him, it was gambling, and
Yeah.
it's like, if I put that bet on, it's not even about the money, it's about that feeling. And then,
Yes.
obviously, if your horse loses, because his was all horse racing, if your
Yeah.
horse loses, oh, okay, how am I going to be able to make myself get to that space to be able to do that again?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
almost like the money isn't money. It's just the
Mm.
means to be able to soothe yourself.
Yes. Yes. And like, uh, I I'm a gambler myself, actually, so I'm really intrigued into this. And as an addict of alcohol, I need to be really careful of how I gamble. And I can certainly acknowledge when I was healing from my addiction to alcohol, my gambling expenditure changed.
Yeah.
And it's something that I need to be really mindful that I'm not just switching the witch for the bitch, as we talk about in substance, but
Yeah.
addiction can present itself in food, shopping, gambling, sex, becoming a triathlete, or substance, of which I could pick up all of those, apart from probably being a triathlete, I think. But I do need to be really mindful about how I look at those sorts of things as well in my
Yeah.
life.
And this was why, like for him, as I studied trauma and learned, all about addiction, that was I've got to know everything. I've got to get that monster
Mm,
out of the cupboard because it was really scary when it first came along. I had these ideas about addiction that were so untrue. They're
yes.
like what you see in the movies, and it's not
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah.
Um, and as I started to do that, I started to go, okay, if you're getting support, I want to make sure that they're looking at why you're doing it, not what you're doing, but why
Yes.
you're doing it.
Yes.
Otherwise, we are just going to be swapping. And him now, he's a massive sugar addict. But I would rather him eating a bag of lollies every night than, where we were. So it's like, okay,
I
well,
don't put a packet of Tim Tams near me, Nicole. Like, it's good night, Irene. They're gone.
that's what he's like. Or I'll go, did
Yeah.
you eat that whole block of chocolate? It was for you to share. And he's gone, oh, thought it was for me.
Yeah. So tell me about how you coped with his addiction.
I didn't. Let me be
Mm,
honest. Probably the first 6 to 12 months, I didn't.
mm,
And my behaviour then, and I'm not ashamed of this because I know it was survival, but
mm.
my behaviour then was a lot of trying to guilt or manipulate him to see the pain he was causing. Like, look at
Yeah.
me. Look at what you're doing. If this isn't enough for you to stop, I don't know what is. I would say horrible things to him, call him really cruel things.
Mm,
Um, was literally micromanaging him. I was having major panic attacks. So
yeah.
he might say, oh, I'm going to Bunnings. And I'd go, of course you are, thinking, of
Yeah.
course you're not.
Yes.
And off he'd go. And then the whole time he's gone, my mind would be going, he hasn't gone to
Mm,
Bunnings. He's lying to you again because you're stupid, because, you don't know anything. He thinks you're gullible. Like this cycle. And then by
yeah.
the time he got home, I'd just let loose because I'm that overwhelmed by these crazy stories that
Mm,
that was our go-to. And when I started my healing, actually didn't really start until one day I had a massive panic attack and it was like, I'm either going to die because I can't manage myself, this can't continue, I
yes.
have to step forward, I have to lead the way whether I want to or not. And I was still doing it for him, still like, if
Mm,
I can, get some support for me, that'll help him. And as I
yes.
soon discovered, it actually was more about me getting to a place where I could be calm enough to communicate effectively. So
Yes.
instead of, oh, of course you didn't go to Bunnings, it would be, I am nervous that you say you're going to Bunnings because in the past maybe you haven't done what you've said. And us talking
Yeah.
about, well, how can we navigate that together? And it
Mm.
really was about me learning too to go, what's going on with me in here? And I could feel the anxiety. Being
Yep.
able to calm it enough to go, okay, I still feel a bit nervous about this because it's new and this trust is going to take time, but I have to be a part of that. I can't
Yes.
expect it all to come from him because how can he prove it to me? That's just crazy. It would be like me going, okay, I'm going to track you on an app, watch you go into Bunnings, pay for it, show me what you buy when you get home.
Yeah.
Then I can maybe go, okay, I think I believe you. It's
Yep.
not a solution. It's more of the same micromanaging, codependency,
Mm.
and it does take time. This is a thing that's really important, but it also takes you being aware enough to go, well, where am I showing up in ways that I don't want to be showing up? How can I start to be the version of myself I want to be? And not
Yeah.
just for your loved one, for all the relationships in your life, but especially the relationship with yourself.
That's amazing. I love the way that you put that. It be
Yeah,
we often talk about in addiction that it's the insanity of what we do to pick up next. I've never really thought about it from the other side of the fence as the loved one of an addict about that level of insanity, which is perhaps justified, because there's a significant trust issue. But if you're driving yourself insane of where is my husband? Is he doing this? Is he being dishonest? Is he
yeah,
being deceitful? You're going insane yourself.
yeah, yeah. And that's 100% true. But the truth is what can they do to show us that they're not? And is it something that's achievable? And is it something that's sustainable? And quite often, the answers are always no. I
Mm,
remember, this saying to him, I feel like you don't see me. I need more support. And him saying, what do you want me to do? And I actually didn't know because
yes.
there's nothing he could do. It had to come
Yeah.
from me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really did have to come from me. And then I was like, well, if I'm asking him to give up this vice that has kept him alive, literally, it's
Mm,
helped him survive most of his life. It started when he was about 18, the gambling and slowly got more and more problematic.
mm,
Am I willing to do the same? Because I don't think it's fair to ask anyone whether they're in addiction or whatever's going on to do something that you yourself aren't willing to do. And
yeah.
that is when it was like, okay, so what am I doing? And then, for me, it was food. Okay, I
Yes.
do. Every time something happens, it was really prevalent. My grandmother passed away about 3 years after, everything happened with him. And I remember getting off the phone from my mum, walking out my front door, over to the supermarket, buying a block of chocolate, and I'd eaten it before I walked back, like 5 minute
Yeah.
walk, and
I
going,
imagine that
oh,
if you were to think every time you open the fridge, like really deeply think about why am I opening the fridge now and doing like a quick inventory, I think for myself, I'd be sort of, it's because I'm bored, I'm lonely, I'm disconnected. Like I'm probably not hungry most of the time that I open the fridge. It's an emotional thought, not an actual physical need.
yeah, yeah. And when I, started healing and I tracked that, my father died when I was 4. And what does everyone do when someone dies? They bring food. So
Yeah.
he's this 4-year old, mum's widowed with 4 children, she's only in her
Mm,
30s and trying hard to keep it together. And I remember just this feeling of despair. Still,
mm,
can feel that in my heart. But then going, oh, everyone's bringing all this food, and I was surrounded by love.
yeah.
But the only way for me to recreate that feeling of you're in pain right now, here's the love supporting you was food. A
Mm,
4-year-old doesn't know that that's what's going on. It's just what helps you. And I've used it my whole life until now. But,
yes.
and it was those early times when I was starting to get, okay, what's going on for me? And I remember a few times standing there literally with that Tim Tam about to eat it going, I don't even want this. What is going on? And taking a
Yeah.
minute to go, what is it that I actually need?
Yeah.
No,
Did you say
you're
your mother
okay.
was a widow?
Yeah,
So your father passed away
when I was
early
4. Yeah.
when you were 4. Okay.
Yeah.
How do you think that's affected your relationship with your husband?
Oh, I had the biggest abandonment wound. And I never
Yeah.
realised it. I just spent my whole life making sure everyone's taken care of, being the
Yeah.
nice girl, being make sure that everyone loves you. And then when I started to unpack that, it was like, no wonder I felt like I had to be his rescuer. Because if I
Mm,
don't rescue him, what does it say about me? Oh, the truth is, people are going to leave you like your dad did. You're
yeah.
not lovable enough to stick around. The
Mm,
truth is that you're broken, that, you don't deserve happiness, all of these sort of things. So
yes.
that when I actually met that wound and, got to reparent my 4-year-old self and let her know
Yeah.
firstly it wasn't her fault and he didn't leave you, he was
Yes.
taken, um, that changed a lot of things. But one
Mm,
of the biggest things I think that happened for me was when I used to get angry with him and I'd be pointing the finger and, saying you're a dickhead or whatever because he'd been
yeah.
gambling. He used to put his head down and I would take that as, see, he's not seeing you. He's not listening. He doesn't care. And
Yeah.
this shift came. When that abandonment wound was finally met, this shift came and all of a sudden, instead of him being, 45-year-old man standing in front of me, he was a 10-year-old boy bending his head in shame, too embarrassed to look up.
It's
And it
so
literally stopped me in
interesting.
my tracks. Yeah.
It's that different perspective, isn't it? Like I'm seeing you at one end of the couch saying, "Do you not love me enough to prioritize me above your addiction?"
Yeah.
And then he's at the other end with this great deal of shame and hurt and embarrassment that's led him to some really dark places. And you're both looking at things from different perspectives, isn't it?
Yeah, we're both literally looking through the veil of our own wounds. We're
Yeah.
not seeing things clearly. And
Mm.
that's, like I quite often say to people, I know it does feel personal, but your loved one's addiction is not about you. So stop
Yes.
making it personal. 'Cause, you probably see it and hear it yourself all the time where people go, oh, he chooses alcohol over me, or he
Yep.
chooses drugs over me. And it's like they're not actually choosing it over you. They just
Mm.
don't know how to literally soothe themselves without it. It's actually not even anything to do with you. But that
Yes.
taking it so personally for us as loved ones is one of the things that weighs so heavily because we really do feel like we're being rejected,
Yes.
and there's a lot of bitterness that comes from that. And
Mm.
trust me, that was me. But actually seeing the truth of it and being able to let go of that is so healing. And, this is for us too. When you can let go of that, the way that you feel and navigate life starts to really shift. Because you don't
Yes.
take everything personally. You see the truth of stuff, not through your wounds, your veil.
Yeah. What a beautiful way of putting it. So I imagine you get people that come and see you that are suffering at the hands of their partner's addiction. If
Yeah.
I come to you and I say, Nicole, I need you to help me fix my partner's addiction, what do you
Yeah.
say?
Trust me, I hear it all the time. And it was me looking out with, come on, save him and then I'll be okay.
Yeah.
And what I say to that is, I can't. I
Yeah.
literally can't. And I say to people, I want you just to take a minute and think about all the things that you have done to try to save or to fix your partner. And I get
Mm.
people with their children as well. It's the same story. What are you doing? What have you been doing and has it helped? And it's no, because we're running on deficiency. We're running from a unregulated nervous system where, we're in deep trauma. We've had trauma our whole life. This is just tipping it over the edge.
Yes.
We can't fix them. And it's not our job to do that. And I don't know if this is true for you, but I know for my husband, a lot of the times when I was trying to fix him, it brought more shame because he's like,
Yeah.
I'm your husband. I'm not meant to be a project. I'm not
Yeah.
meant to be the broken version of myself that you want to put back together. It
Yeah.
actually
And I'm
didn't
and I'm
help.
so I'm supposed to be the provider of the family and the strength that holds the roof over their head and all
Yeah.
of those sorts of things.
Yeah. I think what I end up saying to them, and I have a lot of people too in that state of mind of should I stay or should I go? And that was me. It was actually really, really confusing. It made me feel like I was going crazy for a while because every time we'd have a good week, I'd go, oh, okay, I can relax. I love this man, I'm where I need to be. And then, I'd find out he'd lied or something. And it'd be
Mm,
like, what am I doing? I need to leave. And it was like
yeah.
this up and down, up and down. I'm like, this is not a way to live. I can't keep going. Every time something goes wrong, I'm leaving. Every time
Mm,
things are good, I'm staying. So I actually parked it. I went,
yeah.
that, whether I should stay or not, that's in that box over there for now until I start to get to a place where I can manage myself better, where I can
Yes.
actually see the truth of what's going on. Okay, he's relapsed. It's not the
Mm,
end of the world. There's things that we can do from here, and I know about it, and
mm.
support him in a way that he needs to be supported, not how I want to support him.
Yeah.
Um, and so
And
that was really helpful.
and also you going on your own healing journey allows you to make a really informed decision down the track of, do I stay or do I go? Well, I am the real version of me now that has the emotional capacity to deal with this, the emotional intelligence, plus a sense of time to work out what is best for you at that point.
Yeah, and that's why I say to people, this program you do with me, this is not about your loved one.
Yeah.
Yes, we
Yeah.
talk about what's going on. We learn, boundaries, but boundaries are for lots of situations.
Yes.
And we talk about effective communication. What is it that you actually really want to say? And one of the most powerful things, is literally going, just found out my husband's, been secretly drinking. And I
Mm.
want to say to him, the first thing that comes to mind is I just want to call him every name under the sun.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, well, let's sit with that for a minute. That's up here. Let's go
Mm.
deeper. And as people work through and they go deeper, they come to their heart, and it's like, I just want to tell him I miss him.
Yeah.
I just want to tell him that I love him and that I'm scared. I'm really
Yes.
worried about what this is doing to him and to us. That's the
Yeah.
truth of it. And that's where your power comes from because that's creating
Mm.
connection.
Yeah. Absolutely. I did read something that you put online that I wanted to bring up today because I found it really, really powerful. And you were talking about how you can address in verbal dialogue um, if your partner's got an issue. And one of the things you sort of mentioned was, instead of saying you care more about drugs than you care about us, what's another way that we could reframe saying that?
Well, I think, if you put it into context,
Mm.
that's how you feel like you do really feel. Like
Yeah.
you feel like that is the truth when we haven't been able to regulate and sit with it. But
Yes.
even if you don't know how to go deeper, even if you go, well, is that true? Why would someone literally choose to do something that is constantly taking them away from their loved ones, from
Mm.
their work, from the things that really are important in life? No one would choose it. That's the truth.
Yes.
And just coming back to self and going, okay, I feel rejected. I feel
Mm.
hurt that he's possibly lied. I feel like I'm not good enough. And then we start to get to the truth. Okay, what is the I'm not good enough coming from? Like I remember all
Mm.
the times that I was shown, in certain situations I wasn't good enough. And what did you want people to know? I am
Yeah.
good enough. I'm enough. So how
Yes.
do we connect with someone when we want them to see us? Hey, are you okay? Because I'm struggling a
Yeah.
bit here with this.
Yeah. Make it
I
about
feel,
them. Mm.
yeah, or make it about how do we connect? Because the problem is that the drugs are the solution to their problem. The problem is whatever is going on that is making them go in that direction. Let's try to
Yes.
meet them there instead of making it about the drugs, the alcohol, the gambling, porn, whatever it is,
Yep.
and seeing that, okay, they've gone and done something, but what's actually happened in the middle there? Why did
Mm.
they not feel safe to come to me and go, I'm really struggling, I think I'm going to use? Because
Yeah.
we're never going to get there if we're constantly going, you're selfish. You're a
Yes.
liar. You treat me like crap. How is
Yep.
someone ever going to come to you? It's almost like, when you say to little kids, you need to be honest with me or you're going to be in big trouble. And then
Yeah.
they tell you the truth and they get in big trouble. Why are they going to tell you the truth if they're still getting in big trouble? It's sort
Yeah.
of the same thing, you know, and
Yes.
we all know we've probably all had that in our lives, and that comes back into it as well. I'm going to get
Yeah.
into trouble no matter what. If they don't know the truth, because I feel so ashamed of the drugs or whatever it is, if I lie, maybe I won't get in as much trouble. But if
Yeah.
we create a safe space to connect, and
Mm.
that takes time too. That
Yeah.
takes time as well.
I think as addicts as well, when we're told, you're bad, you're not enough, you're letting everyone down, you're doing this, the shame and the guilt build up further. Um, I think when I first went to rehab or was convinced that I needed to go to rehab, it was when it was with empathy and compassion, and it was framed to me in a way that this is unsustainable for us. This is an unsafe place to be. At the right time and the right moment, when it was framed to me in that way, despite how addled my mind was and how in self I was, I think it clicked. I
Yeah,
think that's when it clicked for me that, fuck, I need help here,
yeah,
not just for me. My partying isn't just about me now. It's actually affecting, it's an us thing and it's a
yeah,
we thing. And I need to address it because um, I care deeply about those around me, my family.
yeah. Yeah, and I think even for us loved ones, because it's almost like when you first start this process of, whether you're in addiction or love someone, when we first start this process of our own recovery, we do tend to be going, I need to do it for someone else. And,
Yes.
for me, it was my kids. Like, my kids need
Mm.
me to be stable, reliable, consistent. They need a mum that isn't having panic attacks, that isn't
Yeah.
crying every morning in the shower.
Yeah.
Um, and that was my catalyst. But then as, you get going, you start to really show up for yourself again because you start to
Mm.
build that self trust and connection.
Yes.
So yeah, and I find that all the time. Like people are spending thousands of dollars sending loved ones to rehab, but then like they're going, I don't know if I can afford to come and see you, and I'm
Yeah.
like, well, can you afford not to? And what are
Yeah.
you willing to do for everybody else? Because you
Yes.
deserve to be cared for as well. You know,
Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
100%. You said that on your healing path, you did a lot of work on yourself. Have you found that that has strengthened the relationship with your children and you?
absolutely. Yeah, like
Mm.
it's really allowed a grounded present state to be. And I don't always get it right, I'm
Yeah.
human, but I know for my kids, we do have a lot of deep connective conversations and we are
Mm.
very involved in their lives. And that's taken time, probably more so my husband with his relationship with them, but being
Yes.
really conscious too that he needs to have his own relationship with each of the kids.
Yeah.
For a while there, it was coming through me. Like
Yes.
almost like I was, I guess, like I almost felt like I was his mum for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
having to rebuild that, and then the kids going, "Oh, we can go to dad for stuff now." It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you can. You can trust him again. You can rely on him. Um,
Yes. Can can trust be built back up with an addict?
I believe so, but I
Mm.
also think it depends on circumstances because, as you know yourself, if people aren't willing to do the work or to be, I guess, open enough to show that they're trying, that's
Yeah.
really hard.
Yeah.
Um, but I think too, same as what we've sort of talked about today, everybody needs to be on their own recovery journey for
Mm.
us to be able to do that. Um, and I know it does take time. This is the thing too, not expecting things just to turn around overnight. Like, oh, I've done, 6 therapy sessions, everything should be good. No, it's going to
Yes.
take time because we're not just dealing with what's going on now. We're dealing with all the ways it connects to everything that's gone on for you in your life.
Yes.
Um, and trusting too that your partner's on a journey and there will be relapses. That's just part of it, like,
Mm.
but learning too how to navigate things so that we're meeting rather than, like I feel like there's can be a bit of a power dynamic where we feel
Mm.
like either the person in addiction is in charge and leading the way, or the person that loves them is trying really hard to get in front. I need to lead the way. I need things to go how I
Mm.
want them to go so I feel safe. It's almost like, well, let's start walking beside each other and start,
Yeah.
reaching out to each other a little bit more. But only when you feel, like, I guess you've got to get to that level of safety. Because
Yes.
can you imagine, like if you go, well, I've been told that I have to start trusting them again, but I've just found that they've lied to me again. That
Mm.
really hurts your heart and sets you back. Whereas I think it's like, am I ready to start trying?
Mm.
Meeting yourself there. I think a lot of this work comes down to being really aware about yourself and where you're at.
Because
But
an
doing it like
addiction, yeah,
calming,
yeah. Because being an addict isn't an excuse for poor behaviour,
no, no, and
and breaking someone's trust isn't automatically forgiven by any state.
no. And I think too, when you think about that, there's a big difference between getting sober and
Yes.
recovering. And
Yeah.
I think that's really sad when maybe you're working with people, their loved one's gone off to rehab and come back and they're like, yeah, they're not doing the drugs anymore, but they're still being really disrespectful. They're still, refusing to try to connect. They're still, I can still feel that they're lying or keeping things from me. So the behaviors are still the same. And
Yeah.
that's
It's
why I say we
emotional
need to,
sobriety, isn't it? Is what I look
yeah,
at.
yeah.
You know,
And
you've got
I
to
think,
do the work all the time, do the maintenance all the time to be able to show up as the best version of yourself.
yeah. And like, I've always said to my husband, we're not always going to get it right, but
Mm.
it's about having that emotional maturity to go, like him, I remember him, about 5 years ago. I think it was nearly the last time he gambled, but was gone. I have to tell you something. And me going, oh God, what is it? He's gone, I put on a bet yesterday. I think it was
Mm.
like $20 or something. And I've gone, okay, how do you feel? And him
Mm.
going, oh, I feel a bit crap about it. I wish I hadn't have done it. And like we've unpacked it together. What are we going to
Yeah.
do now? Why do you think you did it? Completely different space. And that's where that trust each way is built. But that didn't happen overnight.
Yes.
It, like I said, it took time for him to go, she is safe for me to communicate with. She is
Mm.
safe for me to open up to, because I'm not going to turn around and go, oh, why did you do that? You're an idiot. Like
Yeah.
that wouldn't have helped. And it's not going to get him to stay focused on being, in recovery and being the best version of himself if I shame him. But I have
Mm.
had to have done my own work to be able to hold that space.
Yes. I feel in my life, I'm able to discuss that with my wife of, oh, I felt like having a drink today. And then we sit down and we say, okay, let's sit down, let's lock in why. What happened today that made you
Yeah.
feel like you wanted to pick up a drink? And it might have been, well, it's usually triggers of some sort, but a shit night's sleep, a stressful situation, whatever it is that's triggering me and is on my mind. And then we can unpack it. And it always ends up with me saying, I was never going to pick up, but I just needed to let you know that I thought about that today.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's
And
where
that's
we are.
building that connection and that trust together,
Mm.
isn't it, again? And she's like, thank you for telling me,
Yeah.
like, and if, just building that relationship again and going, oh, we can connect and communicate. Because I mean, the opposite of addiction is connection. We
Yes.
all want to know that we're loved and we belong. And I
Mm.
know for us loved ones, it can be really hard. And I think, especially, like obviously you're in a really good space now where you feel comfortable to do that and you've been showing up and trying. But when you
Yes.
love someone that's not willing to do that, that
Mm.
is when it can really take a toll. But I still say to people, don't wait. Start
Yeah.
your own healing as well. And, then you can decide how much you're willing to take on, whether you do want to stick around or not. Obviously, if it's your children, how much support you do or don't want to give them, but do
Mm.
it from a place where you're supported first so that you can make
Yes.
conscious choices, not choices from fear. But yeah, I
Mm.
think that that's really powerful. Like, and that's something that, if people can see that, say from you and your wife, that this is how we do rebuild trust because we're having these open and honest conversations. And, they're
Mm,
probably, when it first starts, there even is elements where you go, they're being honest with me here.
mm.
But, you sort of, well, I have to meet them where they're at.
And
It's
it's
all we
not
can do.
always linear. Like I don't like my honesty is I don't know why I felt like picking up a drink today, but we work it out together of
Yeah,
maybe these are the reasons. Not everything's black and white. It's not a yes and no world. You know, we often work it out on the fly, but if we can work it out together, we're much stronger. Then I
yeah,
tried to deal with my issues with myself and the bottle for such a long time. If I can put another human being in that place that the bottle was, I'm much more likely to solve those issues.
yeah, yeah. Don't know that we have to understand we're humans, we're not robots.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, and like with my son, I've always been a big one of, I don't care if you cry. And
yeah,
like trying to hold those spaces, but even then, the society comes in big and loud. There's only so much we can do, but I think that's the blessing I feel like I've had from all of this is that
mm,
nurturing safe space of allowing whatever comes up. For him as well as 21. It's an interesting time of life.
I
Um,
bet.
yeah, like
Mm,
going, oh, mum's just here. And if something happens, it happens. It doesn't matter. I don't really care what it is. Just know
yeah,
that I'm
yeah,
here. And I've proved
yeah,
it to him, because I have been able to do that. And there are
yeah,
some times where I say, okay, mate, that, I am really worried about you, but it's
mm,
not, what the hell are you doing? Same thing.
yeah.
It's like being honest with what's going on, not
I'm a safe
going,
place to help you.
yeah, yeah.
Um, I've got one more question. As an addict in recovery, how can I make amends to my loved ones?
First thing I will say is stick to your word as
Mm,
closely as you possibly can and being as open and as, I guess, transparent as possible. So if even little things like if you, like what you've said, I feel like I'm going to gamble or I feel like I'm going to drink,
mm,
trying to be honest about it. And if you do find yourself that you have done it, coming forward with it.
yeah.
And, being really, I guess, as vulnerable as you can be that I, this is what's happened. I really want to share it with you. I don't feel great about myself, but can you support me?
Mm,
Um, I think that's probably one of the biggest things that really, as someone else, you can do. And
yeah.
if it's your partner, if it's your partner that like you're trying to make amends to, I
Yes.
think it is trying to reconnect with them and support them the way that you need support, or even ask them, what can I do? Because,
Yeah.
for a lot of us, it's very different and they might not know, but keep having those conversations. And I'm trying really hard to show up in a way here that shows you that I do care about you, that you are important.
Mm,
Um, that's really a really big one. And if it's your children, I think it's really allowing them space to come to you, like
yeah.
not forcing it. That's
Yes.
something that I've seen happen a bit that actually makes kids feel, a bit uncomfortable. So, like my daughter
Mm,
was 16 when this all happened and she had enormous amounts of anger, like
yeah.
didn't know what to do with them. Um, and felt like, like he just didn't love her. Why would he leave? Like there was so much to unpack. She's
Mm.
a social worker now, so she's really good at this stuff. So she,
Yeah.
took her about 2 years. She actually wrote like her dad a letter. This
Yeah.
is how I felt, but I love you. And it
Yeah.
wasn't like you did this. It was like, I thought that you didn't love me enough.
Mm,
I felt really angry because I felt like you didn't see me, like that sort of stuff.
yeah.
But it took her time to get there. So I think not forcing things, but just
Mm,
continuing to work on yourself, but, trying to, I guess, not put the olive branch out so much, but just to go, come and sit with me and let's connect,
yeah.
or even
Yeah.
doing stuff together again. Because I don't know
Yes.
what it was like for you guys, but for us, it was literally like you just wasn't present.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it.
So yeah, we
100%.
made a lot of effort, to go, okay, the kids were younger. This weekend, we're going to go to the beach for the day. The five of us together did a lot of that
Yeah.
stuff for the first few years,
The
just
simple
being,
things.
Yeah, together. And it's quite funny because every spring cup season be like Melbourne Cup's coming. We've got to get away from tellies and radios and all of
Yeah.
this. And we'd make a real conscious effort. And then
Yes.
the other day I said to my husband, "Well, I've just had the Melbourne Cup. How did you go?" And he goes, "Well, it's no, you do know it was no different." I was like,
Yeah.
what do you
Yeah.
mean? It's everywhere. And he goes, "Gambling was everywhere when I was in it. I couldn't avoid it
Yes.
anyway." It's
Mm,
like I spent all those years going, let's
yep.
pack up and try to avoid it for the day, and didn't, and if we'd communicated, it wouldn't have been such a big time of anxiety for me because I could,
Yes.
spring carnival's coming, I could feel my anxiety lift, and it didn't
Mm,
need to.
yeah. Interesting, isn't it? I love what
Yeah,
you said there before as well. You spoke about meeting our partners where they need to be met and then walking this journey forward together. And that's something I will really take out of this discussion today. I'm
yeah.
really grateful for your time, Nicole. Where can our listeners find you uh, and see you?
Yeah, so I've got my Instagram is probably like my biggest space
Yep.
for mindful healing. That's mindful with a Y. Also
Yep.
have a website, so you can also jump on there as well. Pretty much on, the three main social medias, but Instagram seems to be that's my favorite
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
So
Well, you're
yeah,
doing a
find
great
me there.
job and you're making some great waves there. You're certainly drawing a lot of attention, I think. You're doing wonderful things.
Yeah, and I feel like it's taken time.
Mm,
And, it's like a slow burn, this space, because people are really stuck in the stigma of it. So it's almost
yes.
like, people reach out and go, oh, can I come and see you? And I go, absolutely, you can. And then, I've been following you for 12 months. I've just finally got the courage.
Yeah.
And I understand that, I just hope that when we having these sort of conversations that people go, okay, there's so many people navigating this on both sides of it. I think
Mm,
if we even imagine for one person in addiction, like the ripple effect, how many people are, navigating it,
yes.
that we don't need to do it alone.
Yeah.
Connection is the key.
That's beautiful. And I think I've sorted out my wife's Christmas present that I will offer an introduction to yourself. And if she
Mm.
would like to step forward into that space on her healing journey, then she can do that.
Oh, well, I'd love to meet her. Like I said, this really lights me up because I know what it was like to navigate it almost in the dark.
Yeah.
And that's my mission to be the light. Whether people work with me or not, even come and just watch some of my stuff and hopefully it helps.
Be in the space.
Just Yeah, like just to know that you're not the only one going through it. And maybe,
Yeah.
even like when I talked about that resentment of someone going to rehab, the amount of people that have gone, oh, thank you, because I felt so bad for feeling like this.
Yeah.
Just, yeah.
Absolutely. And I truly like, I love what you're doing. And I feel that I ask you the question there of how I can make amends to my loved ones. I think that you offer a space there where addicts can see it from the other side of the fence. And I've really, really loved this conversation. It's been uncomfortable for me because I know the hurt that I've caused others. But we're not growing unless we're stepping into being uncomfortable, are we?
No, we're not. And I think too, like when you start to have, if you haven't already, compassion for self, then that's what extends
Mm,
forward. That's what I found for me. Like that
yes.
when I said I could see my husband, then I realized
Mhm.
I needed to have more compassion for me too.
Yeah,
And that helps connection as well because we see the humanity in each other.
absolutely. We'll leave it there. Thanks, Nicole. It's been lovely to have met you.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Cheers. Thanks for joining us today on Slaying Sober. If you're sober curious, in addiction, or know someone who could benefit from listening, please share this episode with them. Jump over to Instagram and say g'day at Slaying Sober Pod and follow us on Spotify to hear the latest episodes come out. Until then, keep slaying sober.